What is going on, team? Welcome back to another video. And a couple of days ago, I sat down with Glen Oliver, a fellow fitness industry professional, really good friend, and we decided to chew the fat for a little bit on a couple of things in the world of performance, health, and physique that are working for us right now. So prepare to learn the perfect way to sneak a little bit of lifting into your conditioning sessions so you're still getting a bit of muscle building stimulus. How to make working out feel playful and creative again, even if you've been doing it for 15 to 20 years. What I'm currently doing to ensure I have laser-like focus in the mornings. How long you should actually be meditating for if you're just getting into it. Really hope you enjoy this conversation, guys. Let's see what happens. Perfect. Glen Oliver, how are we doing?
Yeah, good man, thank you.
You excited to be here?
Yeah, very. Bit nervous, apprehensive as well. Bit out of my comfort zone, but
that's how we grow, as the pseudo cliche goes. Yeah. So, as I explained to you before, I thought it'd be good to get you on and basically discuss some health hacks. So this is absolutely plagiarized from the Modern Wisdom podcast, where they do their life hacks episodes, and they effectively kind of ping pong round a group of usually 3 of them and discuss things that are working for them at the time, kind of contemporary, right now, something that they've been dabbling with and they think is kind of improving some of it's health focus for them, some of it's kind of productivity. But I thought we could sit down here for a bit, have some lovely mushroom coffee. Not with special mushrooms, just with cordyceps and lion's mane, although they're still pretty special, and discuss all things kind of performance, health and physique, and things that we're dabbling with at the moment. And in I'd say we're veterans of the industry at 35, and you're 42?
Yeah.
Yeah, so at least we're not kind of 19. I wouldn't necessarily take health advice from someone whose age doesn't begin with a 2 yet. But us, we're experienced. Yeah. So at the moment, first of all, actually, what's your training looking like right now? I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, so now for me, it's a little bit restricted because I'm nursing this kind of hernia situation, which is making it just about me doing what I can every day. So in short, probably my training at the moment is really just about me moving in some way that makes me feel good in that. I'm not working towards any kind of outcome-based goal in terms of fitness or movement. It's just about me moving every day in some way that feels challenging.
Okay. And what does make you feel good in terms of training? Is it just stuff that maintains a decent baseline of aesthetics and physique, but that doesn't leave you feeling like you've been flipping hit by a truck after? So you're still limbo, you're still mobile, you're still kind of supple?
Yeah, at my point, so something I've really got into recently is Peter Attia. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah, so just been following him for a while, just read his books. So I guess my training really now forms around a lot of the principles he said about, which is like strength, balance, like zone 2 kind of aerobic stuff. Yeah. And then the zone 5, which is like your harder, anaerobic, aerobic threshold kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I generally do over the week.
Yeah, nice. I listened to, he's been on a couple of podcasts recently that I've listened to. And one of the things that he said is after all the data that they've done and like a meta-analysis of loads of different studies, because I've been intermittent fasting for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah. He was like, other than caloric restriction, it basically shows that it doesn't really yield any result. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit. But in terms of, I'd be interested to look a little bit more in depth as to what exactly they mean by that and who they're doing the work on. Because I think one of the things that is associated, maybe they're looking at purely kind of body composition and cellular autophagy and all the other benefits, and whether or not you do kind of time restricted feeding in like a 16-8, like the typical kind of intermittent fasting window. I think he's saying that doesn't necessarily yield huge physiological benefits that it might have laid claim to before. But one of the things that I've definitely noticed is an ease of digestion, just giving my body a little bit longer to not have to digest food so it can digest things properly. And then when I then do break my fasting window, I feel ready for that and a little bit fresher. And the other thing is cognition. I think a lot of people I've heard of some people that do what's called the OMAD diet. You've ever heard of that? Like 1 meal a day. Yeah. So they basically have a 1 hour kind of feeding window where they get to consume all of their daily calories in effectively one sitting, various courses. Yeah. Like 5,000. Imagine if you're hitting like 4,000 or 5,000 calories. That is a big fucking feast. And I know a lot of guys that do it for cognition, and their mental acuity is just a little bit kind of sharper through the day. Because if your body's spending like even a third of its energy attempting to go through the process of digesting food, it is limiting the amount of energy that it can allocate towards cerebral horsepower and cognition. So in theory, the science makes sense, and I don't know if it's a placebo or not. I actually don't think it. I don't think it is. I think my cognition is better when I fast for a little bit longer. Have you fasted before?
Yeah, it's something I've dabbled with over the years. I think like anyone in our industry has, right? So I guess my experiences of it are, very beneficial in terms of mental cognition as well. And I've dabbled with the 1 meal a day thing. I tried that.
Have you? You've done OMAD?
Yeah,
nice.
I did that for like, I don't know, only a couple of weeks, but it just did not agree with my digestion. Without
really
getting into the nuts and bolts of it, I think my body was unable to deal with that kind of intake in a short window.
Yeah.
But certainly like 24, 48-hour fasts I've done before. I always feel good on them. And the 16-8 as well. But now I'm in a place, I'm a bit more fluid about it, to be honest. Like some days I will and continue with the fast, but then other days like today where I've had to go and do something early, I know if I don't make a intentional decision earlier in the day, I'll default to making a bad decision because I'll leave it too long almost. I find that's the N=1 of my experience right now with it.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So health hacks, we're going to kind of ping pong. We're going to spend about 30 to 60 seconds discussing something that's working for us at the moment. And then we'll inevitably kind of take a deep dive into whether or not that is applicable for everyone. Probably take the piss out of each other a little bit as well with that. You happy for me to jump straight in?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So my current training split is, and I mess around with 1,000,001 different things and usually revert back to this, which is why I know this is kind of my linchpin kind of base home platform. And then I try full body or I try different things. And then I kind of keep coming back to upper body, kind of strength, power and hypertrophy, lower body, strength, power and hypertrophy, and then conditioning. And one of the things that I absolutely flipping love at the moment is starting my conditioning sessions with like a full body 10-1. And it normally takes me around 15, 20 minutes, which is a good chunk of a hypertrophy session, but like a descending ladder of, I don't know, like box squats, strict overhead press and pull-ups is like so good for, I think, finding that middle ground between you get a flipping metabolic benefit, like you're gassed by the end of it, but you still get a little bit of anabolic response as well because you're still lifting. And I think it's just kind of a perfect middle ground. And then any cardio after that feels kind of nice. And it almost feels like it, because it's upper, lower, and then conditioning. The fact that I'm doing a little bit of heavy stuff on the conditioning day makes the little 14-year-old inside me still feel happy that I'm still lifting something. And yeah, it seems to work really well. I feel flipping super loose after. You're normally working at a rep range. You're normally working in terms of weight selection around at a weight that you could normally do between 15 and 18 reps of, but you're doing it 10-1, but basically with with no rest. And there's something about a descending ladder that you're against the clock. You have like a rough idea. And I think keeping yourself, like clocks keep you honest, I think in stuff like that. And it's all, especially if it's a workout that you've done before, you're always either trying to beat it or at least come close. And it's just, it's kind of a decent way to kick off like a quote unquote cardio session. Yeah.
So you would see that as like a primer to what comes next. That makes sense. Yeah. I think that's something that, in my own experience, like as I've got older, I've noticed that I will actually do cardio now actually before strength training a lot of the time, just because I feel like, okay, that's getting me more prepared for it. Yeah. So I can understand why you would do that. Do you feel like that has a dampening effect though on potentially what you're able to express after that? Are you pushing too far? I guess would be my question.
Possibly. I think the thing is, like, I have like my overall, like my go-to scripted flipping like response. If someone's like, what are you trying to develop? And I'll be like, I want to be a good all-round athlete. So I want to develop, in some classic strength development in terms of, lifting some heavy stuff in a safe and healthy way that's good for your longevity as well. Bit of functional bodybuilding, bit of power and athleticism, and a decent enough engine that I'm able to, both kind of zone 2 steady state stuff that one of the things I've got a lot more into recently is kind of, is something I call ruck or run. So once a week, I'll either go for like a 5 or 10K run, or depending on my ankle, because I think I'm gonna have ankle surgery That's my excuse for why I'm a shit runner right now. So I just put like a heavy weight on my
Just
back.
did a running post of the week.
Yeah. It's all lies.
Yeah.
So ruck or run once a week. But overall, I do have to be honest in that the stuff that I do in the gym is probably a higher, because I'm not competing in anything, right? So
No.
So to a certain degree, any objective is self-set and self-reported.
Yeah.
So my conditioning work is to maintain a certain balance. So if doing some like a heavy-ish 10-1, like a full body 10-1 tricep at the beginning of a conditioning session, even if that did affect the like maximum cardio capacity I had for the rest of the session, I probably wouldn't care. That would be a sacrifice that I'd be willing to make, because my main priority is strength. And my main priority is strength and aesthetics. So if it did cause a bit of a dampening effect, I don't really think I'd care.
Yeah, you're paying the price of admission on that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not the main thing. So on those other days, the strength days, do you do a similar thing prior to strength, like explosive, plyometric kind of stuff before to kind of get your CNS going, or what's that look like?
Yeah,
do you do a similar thing?
I do. I'm not as strict to it as I used to be, but I am a massive advocate of primers generally. As something that's light and snappy, but that really does wake your central nervous system up. Something that's maximal intent, but the only difference that I don't do it. I do it most sessions, but I'm not completely strict. But I've got a couple of 1,000 hours and exposures of making sure that I do primers. So my CNS is prepped for that. But it's something that I see a primer as something that kind of bridges the gap between a warm up and kind of the main chunk of the session. Basically what people normally start their main session with, which is their main compound exercise. And it's A, maximum intent, and B, low eccentric load is the thing that I'm kind of looking for. So as an example, that can be kind of hard to do with lower body stuff, but even like box jumps as an example, if you control the landing and then step down, that is a maximum intent, low eccentric load primer. And it's funny you ask about that actually, because I'm a huge fan of it generally, because my background is like speed and power work more so than anything else. And I think that's one reason why it's kind of a passion of mine. And I think the second reason is that I just see it so under communicated in the fitness industry. The CrossFit and functional fitness world, their interpretation of power is not the fucking same as mine. Whereas they're like, I went to NFG, went to National Fitness Games a couple of years ago, and actually did a YouTube video review on it after, and I was like, the power event was an event that lasted 18 minutes. And I was like, these people, man, their interpretation of this word makes the rest of the S&C world just roll their eyes and be like, what are you talking about? I was like, maybe 18 seconds, but 18 minutes of basically steady state work in pairs, and then you just ping pong between two different kind of modalities. That's not power. What the hell are you talking about? So it's like, it's just, but I think primers, so I do primers at the beginning of my strength sessions. They do definitely make me feel a little bit more kind of loose and limber. And I do just enough of it that it, again, it preps me to go into the rest of the session feeling better, but not too much volume that it starts to like accrue fatigue. So if you do 2 to 3 sets of it, you should kind of be fine, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's something I sort of train at a Globo gym now, largely a Pure Gym, if it's okay to say that. And one thing I observe...
If it's okay, you're worried about offending people.
Yeah, Pure Gym. Well, I don't want to get into that, yeah.
I'm so sorry, audience. Jesus. Don't judge me. I'm undercover.
One thing I could generally watch, warm up, you see people what are doing, and there's this like seems to be either people not warming up or this obsession with like correctives as like a mechanism to warm up. And I understand the need for them, but what you've said there is something that I think is so missing in the common dialogue of how people should prepare for exercise, especially strength expression. So I think it's that the breakdown in communication of how to prime your body adequately to express that what you're doing. And just something of note, what you said about the power event there, it just reminds me of, I've been around CrossFit for a long time, a bit of an OG. And I think one of the miscommunications in CrossFit is the way it's peddled as being about intensity. Whereas if you look at pretty much every CrossFit workout bar, like something like Fran, which is maybe 2-3 minutes, it's all aerobic. It's all aerobic. And the best mechanism, purely in terms of energy systems that you can develop to get better at CrossFit is the aerobic system. But people hear intensity, and I think that's something, again, I've seen over the years, people coaching it, is that people get kind of consumed with the idea of intensity and then don't understand that really it's about pacing. And I've noticed over the years, some of the best CrossFit athletes I've coached are people with an endurance background. Generally, maybe done a bit of bodybuilding as well, so they can do muscle endurance kind of reps, but they can understand the motors. And I think that's one of the things over the years, I think, is that they could do better at explaining that. Essentially, it's an aerobic endeavor.
Yeah, I agree. If all events are over 5 minutes, then it is an aerobic endeavor. And there are, I mean, don't get it twisted, these guys are insanely strong. They're phenomenally capable athletes, but the interpretation of what the word intensity means is something that I've also kind of recognized that they don't necessarily get right. So full body 10 to 1s, get a little bit of lifting, that satisfies my primal traumatized inner child that at least gets to lift a little bit on a conditioning workout. That is my first health hack of the day. Moving over to you, mate. What's working for you right now?
Okay, cool. So this is just a loose concept, but I think I've been training in some way for probably 20 plus years now. And I noticed recently, probably in the last year, that I got very comfortable with doing that which I knew. And so I guess the first thing I want to share is that every day now I expose myself of generally just 5 minutes of doing something which I'm generally pretty rubbish at, just to expose myself to learning new things. And that is generally what I'm trying to do now, is do a handstand hold, which sounds really rudimentary, and I know there's no functional carryover to doing it, right? But I guess the hack for me is continuing to expose yourself to doing things that feel physically new and being okay with failing at that. I think there's so much benefit to it. It can just carry over just in the physical domain, but in terms of every other part of your life.
Yeah, I like that. Mate, I love that. So it's humbling. I think you hit the nail on the head with the last bit that you said there, which is re-establishing and reinforcing that it's okay to fail when you're trying something new that's creative and playful. So it doesn't need to be I'm attempting to pursue the development of this skill specifically so that I can be flipping awesome in everything. It's like this is a new thing. Exercise and training and working out does have tangible, substantiatable objectives, but it should be something that is fun as well. And I like the idea that it's kind of like, even if it's just 5 minutes at the beginning of the session, so you don't feel as though you're going to the gym just to do something you know you're going to fail at a million times, but having a little bit of exposure every day to something that is novel, I think is good for your body, it's good for your association with what the gym as a playground is, and I think it's probably good for your flipping character generally.
Yeah, that's it. I think for me, it's trying to adopt that idea of a bit of play in what I do.
Yeah.
And because I train generally by myself now, not in a group setting, which is something I do think you get through CrossFit a bit, is you get that connection, you kind of get a bit more play. But I found training by yourself, you can get really rigid in what you're doing. You just go, okay, I'm going to do push, pull, legs, whatever it is. So I think for me, this is something recently that I found has helped me feel like I'm continuing to progress in some way, even at my old age.
You're just a puppy, Glenn. Don't listen to him. No, I like that, man. I like that. Okay, cool. So my next one, moving outside of the gym a little bit and more into general focus. Like I've even kind of alluded to the fact that one of the biggest benefits that I get from fasting is mental acuity. Focus and concentration for me is something that is always something I'm attempting to develop, and one of the reasons for that is it's something that has always been a bit of a challenge. So Lewis, as an example, a very good kind of mutual friend of ours, is just an absolute weapon in terms of attention to detail and assimilation of information. And I'm looking at him like, fucking hell, it's like a superpower. Whereas my adult, still yet to be diagnosed but ever present ADHD is something that it's something that, like, some days I'm like, I believe I'm capable of taking over the world. Like I'm focused and it's fine. And then other days my body's in a washing machine and my brain's in a tornado, and I'm like sending a text message or an email. I do that and I'm like, I need to lie down. Like, Jesus, that was so out. So one of the things that has helped, so I've got black coffee here. Black coffee is metabolized through the liver, so it doesn't break your fast. That's one of the reasons that I have that. And to be fair, even if it wasn't allowed coffee, I think I break my fast with it, because I don't think a morning without coffee is particularly worth living in right now. But one of the things that I've started stacking, you familiar with Ben Greenfield?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've started doing is basically stacking my morning coffee with nicotine gum.
Okay, yeah.
Mate, it is like dynamite. The only downside is that I'm a little bit jittery. But in terms of focus and energy, that it perks you up so much, but not in just a purely like stimulated way, but just in a way that my body feels a little bit jittery, but my mind feels incredibly clear.
Wow.
And I heard about this particular stack and this particular pairing from Ben Greenfield, and fucking hell does it work.
Really?
So I only have like a 2 milligram piece of nicotine gum, which I know is becoming a little bit more topical for focus now, for kind of like cycling nicotine in and out. 2 milligrams is very low. I know some people who have 4, some people have like, like snus, the pouches that you can put in. Some people have pieces of gum that are like 7. And I'm like, mate, I'd be on the floor. I'd be whiting all over the shop. But 2 milligrams for me, like 2 or 3 times a week, is just enough that if I have black coffee with nicotine, and I think they have independent mechanisms of action, and they do their own things, but stacked together, I think there is like a compounded benefit from kind of memory of reading this part of Boundless, which is like an encyclopedia that Ben Greenfield's done. And flipping heck, man, in terms of if there's just a day where I'm just feeling a little bit, A, kind of flat energetically, and B, a little bit kind of fuzzy and foggy cognitively, stacking those two together, I literally feel like Bradley Cooper in Limitless. You've ever had that? It's like, I just feel clear. I just feel like I know what I need to do. And it was like, I have that, and I'm like, I don't reckon he had a special tablet. I just reckon he had some nicotine gum. And that was it. He just took over the world. So
do you have that habitually, or is that just consciously when you feel like you need it?
Good question. Kind of a bit of both. I'm aware that I have this weird neurotic fear of becoming addicted to certain substances.
Well, I've been there, mate.
So
I've been down that road fully.
So because of that, I think I make sure that I have a quota for the week. So I'm like 4 pieces is all I'll have for the week. I used to actually use it like pre-workout, and it did kind of get me cognitively awake, but I don't know if it actually helped my performance that much. But for now, I use it much more as a cognitive enhancer than as any kind of like pre-workout. So 4 pieces a week. Some weeks I have 2, some weeks I don't have any, some weeks I might have like 5, but very rarely does it go over that. So I would say the habitual part of it is I usually have it in the morning.
Okay.
Because I don't have coffee for the first kind of like 90 minutes of the day. Yep. This is like an Andrew Huberman rule, because your adenosine system, which is the mechanism that caffeine works on, isn't really awake at that point. So I get up, have like basically a pint of water with some electrolytes. So some unflavored electrolyte salts, which I think taste like seawater. Ladies say it tastes like something else.
What, you mean you don't know?
Yeah, I know.
Come on, man.
It's not something I've sampled regularly.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, well, the Marines is a lonely time for a guy. So whenever I have like 90 minutes after I get up and I have my coffee, normally around kind of 8:45, 9 a.m. That's when like I might have a piece kind of 10, 15 minutes after that. And then I know, and mornings used to be a very foggy, unproductive time for me. I used to feel as though it was just a long rolling start into the day before I started to feel kind of productive at about 3 p.m. Yeah. Whereas now, like I know if the 2 or 3, if it is like 2 or 3 days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, that I have caffeine and nicotine gum, I know that I've got a good 2 hours. Like there's no way, in my opinion, like the experience, the physiological change that I experienced, there's just no way, in my opinion, that this is placebo. Like it's a very, very, very flipping real thing. So I normally have it kind of like 9-ish, and the 3-4 mornings that I have it a week, I know that I've got a good 2-3 hours of work in me.
Right. Is it quite immediate? You feel that kind of
benefit? Within minutes, bro. Like literally within like 100% less than 5 minutes. Like maybe sometimes it's like 60 seconds. And I'm like, oh, it's happening. oh, here we go.
I mean,
get the laptop out, I'm ready.
This sounds amazing, but just knowing my nature, whenever I hear this of any kind of substance that I think could be in any way addictive, having gone through various cycles of this, I'm like, that sounds great.
yeah. Enjoy.
Enjoy. But I've never, is what you were saying about the peaking and the energy in the day. So do you think that's just how you are, like that, the kind of the whole chronotyping kind of thing? You peak naturally in the afternoon, or is that?
I don't know, man. Like the chronotype argument is such an interesting one for me, because we live in a world that in my opinion, in the world of fitness generally, and in the world of entrepreneurship and genuine and kind of like general productivity, getting up at like 5 a.m. is massively glorified. So adhering to a certain like wake and sleep cycle is huge. If someone was like, I get up at 9:30 every morning and go to bed at 1 a.m. every morning, people will be like, God, you sound like a slob. But in theory, they could have exactly the same mechanism and operations as someone who does exactly the same, but 4 hours earlier. And I've tried numerous times to get my body to wake up earlier and to go to bed earlier. And I have done it. Like I used to teach exercise. I used to teach Atlas classes. When I did the Atlas classes at like 6 a.m. I was up.
It must have been fun.
And we started it in January as well. Yeah. So it was like, get up, go, do the class, come back, have something else. It's still dark.
Yeah.
I was
horrible.
Like, I'm ready for lunch and the sun hasn't come up.
It's horrible, yeah.
Yeah, it's miserable. So I tried to do that and it always felt a little bit clunky. And I generally, ambiently didn't feel as healthy as I do when I go to bed about midnight and I get up. Or, like, I can go to bed at midnight and get up at 8:30 in the morning and have a flipping amazing day. But there is still this weird social pressure that thinks that's a little bit kind of slobby. So the chronotype thing's an interesting one. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think that...
Yeah, I agree with you. I believe that that's how you are. And I think the trouble is we get so caught up in this way of doing it, we neglect to see what the principles are behind it. And I think the 5 a.m., I've battled with this. I mean, I think I am more of an early riser now. But that's taken me a while because I worked shifts for 13 years. So I don't think I had any kind of regulation there from doing earlys, lates and nights.
Yeah.
But I think the truth is what gets lost in this argument about the best time to wake up are the principles behind that theory, which are maintaining a consistent sleep and wake time, honoring what you're doing in the first part of the day, setting yourself up to express that which is most important to you. And I think if we just focus on the principles behind it and let go of the dogma of it having to be 5 a.m., I think there's some real truth in it. But I think the thing that's lost in this, like, oh, it's got to be 5 a.m., it's like this glorification of the things which we're willing to suffer through to be somehow virtuous in our behavior.
Yeah.
I think that's bullshit. Like, have 8 hours, get up and make sure what you're doing in that first few hours of the day is that which really matters to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are pillars of the order of which you do things, like from when you get up, having exposure to sunlight pretty much straight away within kind of 20 minutes is really, really good. I think that, again, having some, not having certain things and having certain things can be great, but where that shifts on the spectrum of time doesn't necessarily matter. So there's a couple of things that probably would be generally, globally, objectively beneficial for your health if you did in the morning, and things that you both should do and shouldn't do towards the end of the day. But if that is, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. or, 1 a.m., 1 a.m. you go to sleep and then you get up at 9:30. I agree. I don't really think it matters. I think you can get the same stuff done. And I think there's a lot of biological individuality in there. And I think that most people will naturally gravitate towards where they feel better because their body will be telling them to do it. So it's like I can get up at 5:30 in the morning and then go to bed at 9, but I won't feel as healthy and it's not just a gestation. It's not just an adaptation period because I did it for months. I did it for about 9 months at one point, and I remember thinking something still feels as though I shouldn't be doing this.
When's this going to click?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when it's like, oh yeah, you get used to it. When? For the love of God, when? Yeah, man. So back over to you. What's the next thing you would like to chuck to the table?
Okay, so this is maybe a bit more of like a mindfulness thing, if I can have permission to go down that road a little
100%.
bit for me. So, because it's to do with that mental cognition and acuity and awareness, I guess, and it's meditation. So, meditation for me is something I've stopped and started for years. Right, I've been told how good it is, etc., etc., and I've tried all the little things of doing it 5 minutes a day and 10 minutes a day. And the lesson is for me with meditation is if you really want to do it and get good at it, you've got to expose yourself to at least, I would say, 20 minutes of doing it a day.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I think it just takes some time to start to settle in and start to sit with yourself. And I guess as I'm sharing this, I'm sharing something that goes against the grain of, oh, we'll just do it for 5 minutes a day. I'm just going, well, that's actually bullshit. If you want to get the full effects in a quicker amount of time, just suck it up and get used to it. So meditation, 20 minutes a day, that's been one of the best things I've done for myself in terms of developing critical thinking, awareness, everything over the last 3 to 6 months.
Do you feel as though you're able, how long have you been doing this?
So probably the meditation 20 minutes probably is about 6 to 9 months now, I would say. Fairly consistency. But I'll do like probably longer, like 30 minutes in the morning and then 25 to 30 minutes in the evening when I go to sleep.
And as you would flip and expect by the fact that it is me in control of numerous cameras and numerous pieces of technology, this is where it all went to shit. So the conversation was actually a little bit longer than this. I'm not going to tell you how much longer and how much you missed because it will break my flipping heart if I have to think about it again. But what we did have to do is basically cut and crop the video to this point because one of the cameras died. But the good news is if you did enjoy this kind of video in this style of conversation between myself and somebody else, chewing the fat about these particular topics and discussing what's working for us right now in regards to performance, health and physique, then please, please, please do put something positive and complimentary down in the comment section below. Therefore, I will know that you guys are a fan of this and I can arrange to do it again with a group of other awesome people. But for now, my aversion to technology has unfortunately cursed me again, which is going to cause me to wrap it up there. So please do smash that like button if you did enjoy this video. Any questions on anything, put it down in the comment section below. And as always, beautiful people, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next video.